Hi, I'm Leslie from Day Furs, and today we are going to go over fur garment care instructions. Buying a fur is an investment, and there are some important steps that you can take to best prolong the life of your fur garment. Fur, as you know, is a product of nature, and just like our skin ages and dries, so does fur. But there are things that you can do to prolong the life and drastically slow down this aging process. Just like we apply lotions and moisturizers to our skin, it's important to do the same to your fur. If you properly care for your fur over the years, it can last you a lifetime. And once the aging process starts and your fur does dry out, you can't reverse that process. So it's important that this is something that you do on an annual basis. When you store your coat with Day Furs or when you bring it in for service, the first thing that we do is we do a thorough inspection of your garment. We typically start with the cuff and we look inside the lining to make sure that all of the lining is secure, that there's no loose spots. We work our way up to the armpit. This is a common place for skin tears to happen and to come apart at the seams. We then look at the pockets. The pocket corners, again, from wear and tear over the years, are a very common place for people to have issues with just little small skin tears. And should we find any of these issues during our inspection, then we would send you a letter of recommended services in addition to your cleaning and glazing. For instance, on this garment, I have found a hole in the lining up here. We would want to get this fixed. So I will make note of that and send a letter to this customer. And then I check the lining all the way down. This is a French hem. I make sure that the hem tacks are still intact, which they are. I look at the corners of the lining all the way up. It's a very thorough process to make sure that we don't miss anything. I look at the lining in the armpits, and it looks like on this one we just have this one tear up here. And then I'll check the pocket on this side. There is a very small skin tear at the corner of this pocket. And I usually, sometimes on a French hem, will go from the inside and I can literally poke my finger through there. So I'll make note that we need to send a recommendation to get that fixed as well, the top and the bottom of this pocket. And the lining in this one. And then I always like to check the closures. Many times the hook and eyes might start to come loose or pull out of the skin. And should that happen, we want to make sure that we get those sewn, because if you catch these things in the very beginning when they're small, then it's a pretty simple fix. But if you don't and you let them go and it continues to rip and tear over time, then it's a more complicated, more expensive fix for you to have. So, all right, so we've got a pocket tear and a lining tear. And then I always check the skins themselves. These are less common to have larger tears in the skin. It's typically the armpits, the pocket corners, the back of the neckline is a very common place to have issues. And check the other side. Okay, everything else on this coat looks good. No other issues with service. So once I've completed that, then the next step that we do is we clean the lining. And for deep set-in stains, you really can't get those out. This is more of a refresher and a cleaner that's just going to get out, basic soil. And we spray this all over the lining thoroughly. And I always like to get the armpits real good. And then we use our cloth and we wipe it in. Very good. Get all the odors and from wearing it all winter and get it fresh and clean and ready to be stored. Okay, now that we have completed the full inspection of the garment and that we've cleaned the lining, the next step is to actually clean and glaze the fur itself. When we do this, we always start off with our sawdust. And the purpose of the sawdust is a really fine mixture that we're going to mix the cleaning compound in with. And the sawdust will allow to get down into the fur. It will separate the hairs, and it will allow the cleaning mixture to get deep and penetrated well into the garment. And that will help with getting all of the soil and debris. And the sawdust also is a way that it's going to really evenly distribute the cleaning compound throughout the entire fur. Okay, now that we have that all mixed up, now it's into more of a kind of like a pasty mixture. Then we're next going to get the garment and put it into the cleaning drum. And this cleaning drum, when you get the cleaning solution into the drum with the garment, we just put this right on top of it. And then this drum is going to spin for about 30 minutes, and that will allow us to really make sure that the garment and the fur cleaning compound is mixed really well deep into those guard hairs to get all of the dirt and debris from the winter, from your salts, from the streets, get all of that cleaned out of the fur, restore moisture deep into the guard hairs and down well into the skin, and get your garment nice and fresh and beautiful once again. Okay, so we're just going to start this and we'll let it run for 30 minutes. Okay, now that our garment has gone through 30 minutes in the cleaning drum, we are going to take it out. And I just want to point out that this is a really good visual as to why we use the sawdust mix with the cleaning and glazing solution. You can see that it has evenly distributed the cleaning and glazing solution throughout the entire garment, and that it's deep within the fur all the way down to the skin. When you first take it out of the cleaning drum, you'll see that the sawdust and the cleaning solution are all throughout the garment. So our next step is to put it into the secondary drum, and there we will let it spin for an additional 30 minutes. The point of the secondary drum is that it will now allow it to spin and get all of the remaining sawdust out of the fur portions of the garment. So we're going to put it in here, and then I'll start it in 30 minutes and we'll be all done. Okay, now that we have completed the tumbling in the tumbler to get all of the sawdust and cleaning mixture out of the fur itself, and as you can see, most of that did come out of the fur, then our next step is going to be to make sure that we get it out of the pockets, out of the lining, and out of all the small crevices within the garment, because putting it through the tumbler doesn't get everything out. So next we're going to put it onto a form, and we're going to use compressed air to get all of those crevices blown out and get your garment all cleaned and completed. Okay, now that the garment has gone through the secondary tumbler to get all of the sawdust out of the fur itself, we're going to do one final thing to ensure that there's no remnants of sawdust left anywhere. A common place for it to get stuck is in the cuffs, in the pockets, and in the hem, especially if you have a French hem where it's open at the bottom. So we will use compressed air to really go in here and blow it out very, very well to get all of the remaining sawdust out of the cuffs and out of both of the pockets. If there's an inside pocket, we would want to blow that out very well. And then we will get along the hemline. And then once we get all of that completed, the garment will be totally clean, glazed, free of sawdust, ready to go into storage, and ready for you to wear next season.